Welcome, everyone. I'm Jennie Hardin, VP of Brand and Digital Marketing at ezCater, and welcome back to ezCater's Lunch Break podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about some of the more compelling takeaways from our Future of the Workplace Experience report when it comes to Gen Z. They are the generation that is top of minds right now for us and in the media, and we're going to talk about how companies can make the workplace more appealing to them. First of all, Gen Z, for the most part, they're more open to RTO than other generations. They actually want to be in person with their coworkers and having that face-to-face collaboration that's so important for their early career growth. And generally just having fun at work and making friends. What we found is that Gen Z embraces the advantages of emerging technologies, but they also crave real-life interaction and friendship. As passionate about food as they are about tech, they're hungry for opportunities to connect. So, we had to get a food thing in there somehow. So to help us have this conversation and to lend her expertise, we've invited career expert, author, and syndicated columnist Vicki Salemi to help us unpack some of our survey data around Gen Z. Vicki has been featured in some of the top publications like Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Today, CNBC, and CNN.com. So we are truly honored to have you here, Vicki. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invite, Jennie. This will be an invigorating conversation. I'm excited.
Yeah, I can't wait. So let's jump right in. So as I mentioned, Gen Z actually wants their workplace to be social. And what we found in our report is that 86% of Gen Z wish their company offered more events to socialize. And that's compared to 78% generationally. And 56% actually expect their companies to provide more opportunities for socialization. So this isn't just a nice to have for them, it's a need to have, and it's something that they're expecting from companies. So in a world where many employees are resisting RTO mandates, Gen Z want to come to the office. So as a career expert who's spent so much time writing and talking about this generation in particular, what are you seeing when it comes to these trends of Gen Z return to office and what they're looking for in a workplace?
It's so interesting because they are true digital natives, right? And so you would think, oh, they would prefer not to be returned to office, but they are all in. And I think it's fascinating. First of all, the ezCater data is in alignment with other data I've seen consistently saying they want to be back in the office. I think there are two main things going on here, Jennie. Number one is they were so impacted by the pandemic, and we can talk about more of this and how that impacts them, but they didn't have the one-on-one mentoring that you would have for an internship. They didn't even have internships. And so I think they crave that in-person connection where they can meet colleagues, network, really shine, have meetings in person that they just don't get in other areas of their lives. The second thing is they have less, and it's admirable, they have less definitive boundaries between work friends and regular friends. It's just friends. Where as you and I, probably have our whole careers have kept professional relationships in that bucket until people resigned or whatever, and then they became your regular friends. So I think that's part of it as well, is they just see work as a place to be social and also work and have fun and be productive.
That's so interesting. The boundaries are blurring when it comes to, not only work and personal life, but then also whether it's digital or in person too. And I want to dig in more to the first point that you made about how impacted Gen Z was by the pandemic. A lot of them are feeling this, many, many years of working remotely or learning remotely. And it's in line with what another insight that we had, which is that 38% of Gen Z employees feel lonely at work. And so this was one of our more jarring takeaways from our report, that so many people, young people, feel lonely and isolated in the workplace. And unsurprisingly, older generations just didn't report or respond in quite the same way. So again, clearly coming out of those COVID work from home setups, this makes some sense. What do you think explains this for Gen Z, and how can companies create workplace experiences that help mitigate some of that loneliness and help these workers thrive?
Yeah, well, first, kudos to Gen Z for admitting they are lonely, because that's the first aspect to say, okay, this is the loneliness epidemic is really impacting them. And secondly, it's really insightful to your question, Jennie, about what employers can do. They can be extremely proactive in having work events. Let's say specifically, if something is a meeting online, have it maybe less frequently, but in person. Try to be very impactful about year-end celebrations or celebrations throughout the year, even if it's not work-related, birthdays of the month, and have bagels and coffee or something, and maybe a reading club or a walking club or book club rather. So things to promote camaraderie. And it could be little things. And the beauty of this, Jennie, is it doesn't necessarily cost a lot. It could be, let's say, for ezCater, like have lunch catered once a week, or just, and I'm not even sponsored by this. And just like seriously, like think of ways, break bread with people, and have, whether it's breakfast, lunch, really a lot of team building and just friendships at work happen by the water cooler.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think whether it's food, which again we love, or it's the coffee, the book club, the walking club, like you said, just finding those opportunities for connection among shared interests or ways to bring people together that are a little bit lower stakes, but people can come and be themselves and start to make those organic connections too. And something that we heard from Gen Z too, we asked all generations, but Gen Z in particular, what are your top workplace wish list items? And this kind of goes back to creating that FOMO that you just brought up. And they want the happy hours, the team retreats, the company retreats, just those organic social connections or the structured social connections to bring people together. And so, there's almost a sense of nostalgia here when you think about happy hours, because we found in other data that a lot of workers actually don't want to stay after work to socialize. They want it to happen within that workday so that they can, kind of come in, make the most of their time in the office, and then go home to do whatever they need to do. So is this sense of nostalgia, kind of this callback to happy hours and other types of, I'll call like workplace events of the pre-COVID days, something that's unique to Gen Z? And what would you suggest companies consider leaning into to engage Gen Z and even other generations for that matter?
Yeah, it's so fascinating, isn't it? And it is nostalgia. It's like kind of retro here. But I think also for Gen Z in particular, they don't have maybe the other obligations that millennials, Gen Xers, and baby boomers have, like raising a family or caregiving for an elderly parent or student loans for their MBA or master's degrees, et cetera. So I think it's important for companies to look at Gen Z and also ask their employees, like, what do you want most? Do you want a happy hour twice a month, or do you want a movie night, and we rotate movies, or ask them what would be most helpful for them socially. What are they looking for? Maybe it's a volunteer day where they're doing something like community service oriented. So it's really diving into that and just respecting and acknowledging Gen Z needs this. It's not like a not a nice to have. It's a need to have. They really do crave that connection. And that can then in turn, hopefully boost productivity, morale at work. They want to work there. It makes it a better place to work.
Yeah, definitely. And it goes to the whole point, obviously, of these social connections goes back to one of your original points, which is creating those friendships and the fact that the lines are blurring between friends in your work life and in your professional life that you keep over here and friends in your personal life. And so it's no surprise that 72% of Gen Z workers think it's important to have friends at work. And that's something that really made them stand out in our Future of Workplace Experience report. And so, even 85 to 86% say that work friends help them feel more engaged. And that leads to more productivity. So when we're thinking about companies and you're thinking about these social connections, again, it's not so much a nice to have, but even a need to have for driving that bottom line also. So do you think that there's anything more to, obviously we've talked about the fact that these earlier stage career folks have more time and flexibility, but do you think there's anything more to it than that? Do you think that there's something deeper happening with Gen Z in particular when it comes to the importance of friendships at work?
I do. And I think if we dive deeper in terms of all their social media activity and feeling connections, and they crowdsource, let's say if they went on a job interview and it didn't go well, they're like, hey, you guys, what should I've done? Or what do you think about this? So I think there's something just in a larger umbrella of society that, they're so connected online that I think they do crave that connection offline. But then it goes to, an interesting topic of communication. How do they prefer to communicate at work? Because they won't necessarily pick up the phone and have a
Right.
conversation, but it's rather like in person or online through a DM or an email. So it is interesting, and it's an exciting space to watch as the pendulum continues to switch. Because a few years ago, we wouldn't have been talking, I don't think we would have been talking to this extent about millennials need the connection with each other. And sometimes people just feel like at the end of the day, I don't want to deal with work or work friends or work people. But it's exciting because Gen Z, it's definitely blended. It's definitely blended.
That's so interesting. And, you brought up the topic of communication, which I think is distinct to each generation. So Gen Z is experiencing it in their own way as well, whether it's a quick DM or the use of emojis or Slack emojis if you're on Slack, things like that. What are some of the trends that you're seeing when it comes to communication among Gen Z, knowing that that plays such a big part of the aspect of socialization in the workplace experience as well?
Yeah, when it comes to actually having conversations with their boss, I find they're not as proactive because they're not used to having these conversations. They would prefer to negotiate, let's say, over a DM rather than in person or at least through a screen. And if not, then on the phone to realize that sometimes, like even resigning, you should not text your boss to resign. But,
No, you should
you know,
not. Let this be a PSA. You should not text your boss to resign.
exactly. So things like that, I think it's just this socialization. And that's where it comes into being in the office. If they have a mentor and they can just observe how their peers or their leaders of their company are just behaving. They can pick up on a lot of cues and specifically communicating.
Yeah. And, that actually goes back to a topic. We had a conversation with Micah Remley, the CEO of Robin, which is a workplace experience platform. And he brought up some data around, if you sit within 20 feet of a high performer, you are more likely to be more productive and engaged. And one of the reasons being because you are, no surprise, you're able to just learn and absorb more by being in their proximity, whether that's asking questions or picking up more from that mentorship aspect or just hearing the conversations that they're having and navigating difficult conversations. And so it goes to what you're saying about communication too, and just have to shift that behavior a little bit for Gen Z in particular and how the workplace can play a role in that.
That's fascinating that just sitting near someone. It's like with, that quote, you are who the five friends that you surround yourself with. That
Yes.
reminds me of this. And I wonder too if dress code plays a part, like that high performer. Someone was fascinated too by dress codes and just how lax it's become, but now it's like swinging back into more formal and things like that.
I know it's crazy to think that I started my career and I have a vivid memory of going shopping with my mom for like pencil skirts and blazers. And I have long gotten rid of those because those are not the dress code for the workplaces I've been a part of, especially in the tech industry recently. But shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about food, our favorite topic. We've brought it up a couple of times. So Gen Zs, they are more likely to say that eating with coworkers improves their workplace experience and that events, including food, like what you had mentioned, catering a lunch, having coffee, even maybe bringing an ice cream for a special treat, makes them feel more connected to their coworkers. And a whopping 86%, we did not make this up, I promise, 86% said that daily or weekly meals provided by their employer would improve their experience at work. So why is food so important to this generation, in your opinion, Vicki? Obviously we love food. This makes us happy, but this is astounding when you look at the data.
It's significant. I just think food brings people together. And if they're so focused on socializing, and that's just a natural organic way because you're going to eat lunch at work at some point during the day or you're going to have a break. What's interesting too is I noticed even at my co-working space they have weekly lunches to get to know
Mm.
each other. We don't even work together, but it's like, hey, let's all, so food is a common denominator. And I think if the company's providing it, there's some type of loyalty to the company that's saying, oh wow, they want me, they want to be like feed as well. Or even if there's food available and it's not necessarily a sit down lunch, it's just there's food in the fridge, help yourself. I think it's just a team builder, and they really value that.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things we talk about also, or that we found in our research as ezCater, is especially among the millennial and Gen Z generations, there's this desire for more personalization. So whether it's because they're used to the consumer behavior of being able to order something and be able to customize it or what have you, like there's this desire for almost individualism, being able to personalize it. And so I'm curious, in other aspects of your work of the workplace, have you seen that manifest in a different way recently than it has before? This sense of wanting kind of experiences tailored specifically to them.
Yes, not so much in experiences, but definitely career development. They're
Mm.
looking for specific career development and hands-on guidance from their boss in terms of, okay, what's my career now? What's my path? What's my 2 to 3, 5 year path? Which is great. So they're looking for more performance management, which is interesting because the past several years, the trend has been to be more lax in performance management with less formal, meetings, et cetera, but they want more touch points. So I'm not surprised with the individualism that they want things personalized, especially when you think of just online shopping. Like your phone knows exactly what type of shoes you just ordered, and here are 5 more that you may want to be interested in. So I think that just that mindset they're so accustomed to is not surprising.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then so, we've covered a lot of ground and you're the expert. So I want to give you space to just share whether it's kind of career and workplace trends relative to Gen Z or more broadly. Like, I'd love to hear what else you're seeing in the world as we evolve the future of the workplace and just how folks are managing their careers.
Yeah, the first thought comes into mind, it's hot topic, Jenny, and it will be for a while, is AI and just
Hmm.
how it impacts Gen Z because AI has taken over some more entry level type of responsibilities. And so Gen Z right now may be thinking, okay, what's my career path? But what's really important is just for everyone to stay on top of their skill set, not only technology, but their people skills, the soft skills, leadership,
Yes.
communication, listening, writing, all the really important skills that are the bread and butter, really. Because when you have that, like, even though AI is here, it can help supplement our career, or supplement, like if you need help writing a cover letter, you just pop it into AI and see what comes out for your job search to streamline things. But also think about, okay, for my job or the job I want, what are the responsibilities? How could they be outsourced? And then how could I stay ahead of that outsourcing?
Yeah, definitely. And it's combining, that especially for Gen Z, the generation that's most digitally enabled with developing those people skills that maybe they didn't have a chance to do in the pandemic. And then for all of us, making sure that we're still keeping up on the cutting edge technology, but not losing sight of the fact that that critical thinking, the influence, the relationship building will continue if to be important, if not more important too.
Absolutely. And then the other thing that's interesting is for Gen Z, it's super important to have that in-person relationship building at work. But if they don't get enough of it or they want more of it, they can supplement it. They can build those relationships outside of work, like Toastmasters, work on their public speaking skills, take an improv class, do things in the community, volunteer. There are certain things they can do that aren't necessarily specifically work related, but they will gain and build those skills in communicating.
Yeah, that's a great call out. And they may even find some friends that then become work friends eventually, in the same inverse of work friends becoming personal friends and how those lines blur. That's great, Vicki. So tell us more for those who are looking to get in touch and want to dive into your expertise and those insights more. Please tell folks how we can get in touch with you or they can reach out.
People can learn more about me by visiting my website, vickisalemi.com, and following me on Instagram at Vicki Salemi. And I write a column twice a week for Tribune called Careers Now, and it's syndicated nationally with hot topics. So be sure to check it out.
Awesome. I can't wait to dive in more, Vicki. It's been a pleasure to have you. And thank you for coming on and lending your expertise on all things Gen Z in the workplace. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. This was a lot of fun, Jenny.
Yeah. And so if you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast app, keep in mind we have links to a number of resources that you can check out, including ways to get in touch with Vicki, but also including our future workplace experience report. So if you'd like to connect with somebody like myself or somebody else at ezCater to discuss how we can also help improve your company's workplace experience, that information is all there too. So next week is the final episode of our series, and we're going to talk about workplace experience with an expert, Jess Clay, about some of the decisions that companies are thinking about when it comes to space planning, amenities, how you brand your space, and really make it super inviting for all of your employees to come. So it's a really great conversation, and I hope you're going to join us. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.